All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. 3 weeks of, dare I say, hell. We're going to talk about that for a few minutes, folks. But welcome back. This is your Insurance Corner. My name is Bill Miksch. I'm president of W.D. May Financial Group in Grayslake, Illinois. This is your Insurance Corner, and for the next hour, we are going to talk about different levels of insurance, financial planning, long-term care, annuities, retirement planning, estate planning. Tonight's show, we're going to have an abbreviated discussion about what's going on in the marketplace and why an annuity may or may not be suitable for an individual. But with that in mind, and without further ado, the man, the legend, the way of life, Sean Hauser.
Hey, Bill.
How are you, my friend?
Oh, I think the magical question tonight should be, how are you? You sound like we pulled you out of Hades' grip and brought you back across the river Styx or something.
Boy, I'm telling you, let me just tell you, folks, influenza A is real. I'm not a spring chicken, but I'm not old either, as far as I'm concerned. I know my wife might go, yeah, right, okay. But I have never, ever in my life had a flu like the one I just had. I've had pneumonia once, and honestly, I can't remember if I was in the hospital or not for that. I know my wife's been in the hospital twice with pneumonia, including recently, which I'll talk about briefly in a second. This Sean, this influenza A, it brought headaches, debilitating headaches, body pain that felt like I just went through 9 rounds with, Joe Frazier. And I'll give you a perspective on that. I'm a big hockey fan. And about 2 weeks ago, Thursday, the Canadians and USA were playing in an international tournament, and they were in the championship game. I wanted to watch the game, but I didn't have the body energy to sit up in my bed and watch the game. That's how much body fatigue I had. So I ended up laying on the pillow, listening to the radio show. The TV, the game on TV, as if it were a radio show. And when they scored a goal, then I had to scramble to get my glasses to go, what happened? Now, here's the funny part. So Sally comes up, my wife comes up, and at this point she's relatively healthy. She doesn't have any medical issues at that point, and I'm sicker than a dog. And she turns off the television, and they're about to go to overtime.
Wow. I
did not have the mental acuity to fight back. I'm like, I don't care. I'll find out tomorrow who won. So it was all good. But yeah, this flu has gone from physically debilitating to migrating to a cough. The cough could have probably shaken up Mount St. Helens on occasion. That's how bad it was. I have to be careful because I can still go into a coughing fit even right now. So if all of a sudden I go silent, folks, it's because I didn't want to cough in your ear. But as of this Sunday, I felt good enough to go to church and play in the 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock services, which on one hand was good because I finally was able to get out in public for a little bit. Not that I didn't work, but I didn't work at the pace I normally work just because this thing just knocked the crap out of me. But when I can tell you after the 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock service, plus we lost an hour of sleep, when I got home at noon, I was a zombie. And the only thing I did was, at the end of the day, I planned on doing some work, but at the end of the day, I watched some basketball, I watched a little baseball, my wife and I went grocery shopping, and then we watched a movie. I think it was Runaway Jury by John Grisham. So, yeah, I mean, I'm feeling good, so thanks for asking, Sean. And lots of people have reached out to me and say, hey, how you doing? Are you okay? Don't worry about things. I know you're going to get to them as time goes. So for those of you who reached out to me over the last 3 weeks, thank you. It was definitely heartfelt. In fact, last week when I told people I wasn't going to be there, Sean, my phone rang off the hook. Like, are you still sick? I can't believe it.
Wow.
So
yeah. When I talked to you last week, or I texted with you, it was. Where's the next one coming from? It sounded like you were sick. Sally wasn't feeling well.
Yeah, and Sally ended up in the hospital with pneumonia. So yeah, I mean, and there was a side thing that was going on with her adrenal gland, but that resolved itself. But yeah, she and I think she actually started it with a cold or whatever, but I'm not going to blame it on her because I don't know where the heck this cold came from. She's with kids all day, but I'm out in public all day, so it is what it is. It just happened, But what I have been told, and this is across the country, and probably, Sean, you can echo these sentiments, there's something that's going around between pneumonia and COVID and influenza A or B. There's some nasty stuff going down right now.
Yeah, I've here in the Dayton, Ohio metro, people have been talking about hospital beds are starting to be at a premium, and people are coming in droves because, you get the flu, right? So you gobble down some NyQuil, Dayquil, whatever, chicken noodle soup, and, you stay in bed for a couple of days and you start to feel human again, and they're saying that people are just feeling progressively worse, and they need to kind of go to the big guns to even break, some of these feelings before they can, start to recover. So
well, and to that point about hospital beds, my sister works for a major hospital system here in Chicago. She's a big shot with them, and when Sally and I went to the ER, they got her right in because she had pneumonia and she had other vital signs that were problematic. But we sat in the ER for 24 hours. And then they moved us to what they called an annex, which is kind of rooms off the ER so they can open up a bed in the ER for other people. We didn't actually get a bed until 48 hours after we got to the ER. That's so to your point, beds are at a premium right now. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and I think this has been happening now. I want to say it's probably been about 60, 90 days. It's been building.
Yeah.
And because I can remember news stories right around the holidays talking about, this flu is more severe. This influenza A is more severe, and they talked about like the vaccination that people got for the flu this year wasn't as effective on this strain for some reason, and I honestly think it had to do with Inauguration Day, but because a lot of people were outside.
Sure.
And no, I'm kidding. But
yeah. Actually, weren't they inside for that thing? Yeah. So.
It's something severe. So if you're not feeling well, get yourself some care because.
Yeah, I mean, it took 4 days. It took, I like you said, Sean, I've had flus before where a couple days you're in bed, you do the chicken noodle soup, water, just wrap yourself in blankets or whatever and just kind of chill for a little bit.
Yep.
That after 4 days of going through terrible, body aches and coughing fits that would, move Mount St. Helens, it's I ended up defaulting to go to urgent care, and they tested me for COVID and flu and strep throat and a couple other things, and I didn't have anything but the flu, and it was influenza A. And just for those of you who are talking at your radio station right now, no, I did not get a flu shot. I'm not a big fan of them. Sorry, I'm not a non-vaxxer. I'm just not a fan of injecting myself with a flu virus that might stop the flu. And you even said, Sean, that the flu, whatever flu shot was out there, didn't hit the mark. And I'm not a big fan of getting the COVID shot. My wife is, on the other side of that table. She is very diligent about getting her flu shot. In fact, today she got a pneumonia shot. But I might change my mind on the flu shot. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
My nephew got it. My nephew got the flu shot and got the flu. And I've had it happen before, and other times I've been perfectly fine, so I assume the shot worked. But
and that's the part that would, Sean, if I got the flu shot and then I got the flu, that would be the last time I got the flu shot. I can just tell you that right now. Now, let me just add a couple other pieces to the pie here. February and March in my family, folks, and not to get personal, but there was a lot of things that happened in February and March. We lost my brother-in-law, and a week later, we lost my wife's aunt, who she was very close with. My brother-in-law died suddenly. We didn't see that coming. Sally's aunt had cancer for a long time, and cancer overtook her. And then Sally got sick, not a big deal initially, and then I got the flu, and then Sally got pneumonia. Sally ended up in the hospital. How I didn't end up in the hospital, honestly, I don't know. But the month of February and March is not only was a big challenge for us, but was also a lot of moving parts in our family. So for those of you who knew what was going on, thank you for your prayers. On the lighter side, Sean, baseball is starting next week.
I'm not ready yet, and I'm not a basketball fan, but I do like March Madness.
Yep.
And the season between the football ending and you got basketball and you got hockey, and I was watching lacrosse the other day. I was a little desperate. I'm excited to see baseball start this year. So.
Well, I didn't realize this, but Japan, the Cubs and Dodgers are going to Japan. First to play a couple of the Tokyo teams, and then the Dodgers and Cubs are having a real life game in Japan. That's the start of the season, at least for those two teams. So I was kind of surprised that it actually did that, but I'm sort of ready for baseball. But to your point, I've been watching a lot of the March Madness stuff. That's a lot of fun to watch because there's no money involved. These kids are playing in small conferences, but they have a shot at going to the big game,
Right.
And it's really cool to watch that. As a separate matter, but kind of related, Warren High School in Gurnee, Illinois, folks, just made it to the Final Four. They beat Rolling Meadows, or as I like to say, Rolling Ghettos. I think 60 to 48 last night or 2 nights ago. So they're going to the Final Four in the state of Illinois. So pretty exciting in Gurnee. So baseball starting, basketball, March Madness is right around the corner, particularly for colleges. And then we're going to get into what we're going to talk about tonight to some degree. And Sean, you and I have a special announcement later towards the end of the show, so folks don't go away about the special announcement Sean and I are going to talk about. We're just going to tease that. Have you been watching what's going on with the market, Sean?
Painfully, yes. I'd like to know who I can send a bill to.
Yeah, right.
It's listless right now. If you look at it, and I do watch the market, and like today the Dow was down 1%, but that's we were knocking at the Dow hitting 50,000 a month ago.
Yep.
And the S&P and the Nasdaq and everything, and since then a lot of concern about these tariffs, a lot of concern about not only the tariffs that are in place against Mexico and Canada and China, but then who else is next?
Right?
And they're saying that people are invading their 401ks, emergency expenses.
I happen to know a couple of clients that specifically called me today to tell me they were doing that. Yep.
Yeah. And they need the money, or you've got a lot of people, and this is where you need to be kind of diligent and kind of patient, is that, in these times where the market's crazy like this, that natural knee-jerk reaction is to go, I'm getting everything out of the market, and I'm going to ride this out.
Yep.
and you're locking in losses.
Yep.
Now, if you've made some profits and want to take something off the table, you think about it. But
Yep.
if you're just freaked out because, I'm probably down 75, and I'm not ready to get out yet.
Yep.
I'm thinking this could be an opportunity.
And you're exactly right, Sean. The natural reaction of every human being is to get out. And what happens is they get out while it's still going down, and then they forget or forgot that they got out, and they never get back in because they got scared. And so those opportunities that those people had when they bailed when they shouldn't have, and I get the emotional part of it, and it's hard to, especially when you have this artificial number on a piece of paper that says you have $800,000, and the next day you wake up because the market took a bath and you're down to 650, and you're like, what the heck happened? This is why, folks, our show exists. And tonight's show is going to talk about safe money. Let me just put this in perspective. I'm not securities licensed, so I have to be careful how I say certain things, but the markets are what the markets are. And the markets are not going to be guaranteeing you anything. There's one guarantee for sure. They will go up and they will go down. And when the markets go down, as we're seeing right now, they go down very quickly. And they tend not to recover, notwithstanding the COVID period when the markets took a bath, and then 3 or 6 months later, the markets kind of regrouped and it was all back to normal, so to speak. But that's an anomaly. And I don't think, Sean, we're done with this, whatever correction you want to call it. I think there's more damage that's coming. So for those of you that are worried about some of your money and wanting to keep it safe, an annuity may be a good choice to put some of your money to keep it safe from market volatility, so that the money that you move from your 401 or IRA can go into a place where you're either going to get a fixed account at 4.5% or 5 or 5.5%, or you're going to be in the market with no downside risk, meaning you can mirror image the S&P 500, but if the S&P continues to go down, you cannot lose a penny. The insurance companies take all the risk. These are not your grandparents' annuities or even your parents' annuities. These annuities, folks, have evolved. And so what I've been talking a lot of our clients about, Sean, is take a portion, 20%, 30%. I don't want any more than 50% because the markets eventually will come back, or maybe you're too old to have, that much liquidity off the table. But 20, 30, as much as 50%, but 20 or 30% of your overall portfolio, and say, I don't want to lose this money. This money I need to keep. So what are my options? Here's one option. You can move the money into a CD. That's great, but it's not exciting. And a CD isn't going to guarantee you an income. You can move the money into a money market account. Same thing, though. Rates of return may be okay, and you've got money in a safe place. It's not going to get punished. However, if you need that for income, those modules, if you will, the CDs and the money markets, are not going to guarantee you an income for life. I had a client yesterday call me up, and they said their advisor wanted to put them into a dividend-based bond fund. And I said, okay, that's an interesting concept. What happens if the interest rates start to go up? She had no idea what I was talking about. So I casually explained to her very nicely that there's an inverse reaction to interest rates and bonds. If interest rates start to tick up, meaning inflation starts to tick up again, the value of that bond is going to be diminished significantly, and the dividends are going to go right along with it.
Randy Miksch or Randy.
So I should have answered it, Sean. I've told Randy that my son's calling me right now. I should answer the phone and go, WLCB. Yeah, let's do that. Hold on a second. Let's do that real quick. Hold on a second.
Now, I know what you're talking about because
Yeah.
I've had people when I would be, when I was in retirement planning, and they would look at bonds as an alternative because of the safety, the relatively safe position of bonds. They figure they get into it and they see this rate of return of like 6-7%, and they figure that's great. But their share price is based on the value of the bonds, and so if your bond fund owns a bunch of 6 and 7% yielding, there'll be some higher ones, some lower ones. It's a mix. And then interest rates go to 10, 12%. Well, people don't want to own your 6-7% bonds. They're going to sell those so they can get in on that 12%.
Right.
And so as rates go up, bond prices go down since they're fixed.
Yep.
And it's case in point, there I looked at a bond today that was a 1.5% bond that matures in 2 years. And the rate was less than par or less than face value because nobody's going to put their money in a 1.5% bond if they can go to get a CD at 4.5%.
Right. Exactly
Something
right.
like that.
Yep.
So yeah, and I'm not an investment advisor either, but I think sometimes you get caught in those. It's bonds, it's safe, it's stock, it's risky, it's this, it's that. Well, there's some stocks that are safer than some bonds, and there are some bonds that are more riskier than crypto.
Absolutely. In fact, Sally and I just watched The Big Short over the weekend. Have you seen that movie?
I have.
And folks, just if you've not seen that movie, this is all about 2008 and the housing bubble and how that all happened. And most people had no idea what these financial institutions were doing to make millions and billions of dollars in revenue until things got caught up, and all of a sudden the whole housing market crashed, and everybody who was paying into their homes and thinking that they had a safe place for their money lost $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 or more in their value of their homes, or lost their homes altogether because of the mortgage, the kind of mortgage they got into. So you're right, Sean. The market, when markets go up, everybody's happy. Was it Greenspan who said something about irrational exuberance? When the markets go up, financial advisors look like stars. Everything is great. The sun is shining 24/7. The stars are out at night. Everything's hunky-dory. The moment the market takes a downturn, what's happening? Because most people are not buying stocks, they're buying mutual funds. And folks, just so you understand, if Sean or I were securities licensed and you called us up at 9 o'clock in the morning and you said, sell XYZ mutual fund, I would take the order and I'd put it in line, and there's nothing I can do to sell that mutual fund until the end of the business day. So I have to wait for the bath to finish and pray to God that the fund that we're about to liquidate, it didn't take such a bath that you not only lost money on paper, but now you're going to take a hit taxes wise, etc., on the backside, and you don't even see that coming. So
yeah, that's a hard thing to teach people too, Bill. Because if you think about a stock, right, a stock or a bond, to sell a stock or a bond, you need to have a buyer,
right?
Okay, and that's what the exchanges are there for, and that's what NASDAQ is there for. But a mutual fund is a basket of investments. They own stocks and bonds, so they're in there trading the values, or they're watching those values go up or down with the market play. But they don't, until the end of the day, they don't know what the value of one share of their mutual fund is until everything closes. So about 6 o'clock is usually when most mutual funds will post their net gain, net loss for the day, and that's when your trade will execute.
Right.
Is on that value.
Right.
So you're right. People are like, get me out of this mutual fund. Well, you can't. Now, exchange-traded funds or ETFs, those trade more like stocks, but it goes back to Peter Lynch buy what you know and know what you buy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Peter,
and don't just buy it because everybody at the club said, hey, I'm up on Drixon 2X QQQ fund.
mm-hmm.
Well, is that betting on QQQ going up or down?
Right.
And do you stomach the risk?
Mm-hmm.
And can you deal with it? And if you're putting that money in there thinking, I'm going to send my kid to college next year and I'm going to get him a Cadillac to drive to school in, and you dump all your money into a high-risk investment, you know, you could lose it all, too.
Yep.
I hope you win.
Yep. Yeah.
If he's going to go in 18 years, maybe you take the risk.
Yeah, and think about this, folks. When the market collapsed in 2008, if I'm not mistaken, it took 8 years to get back to even. 8 years. Now, the market has since gone nuts. And lots of people have made lots of money, and that's great. Got to watch my time here, Sean. I think I'm at the bottom of the hour. We gotta go. I don't want to get in trouble with the powers that be, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So we're going to be right back after these short messages, folks. Stay tuned for Sean and I's message towards the end of the show. It's really important that you stick around for this. I'm not kidding. So we'll be right back after these short messages.